Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is a special broadcast of Focus on Liberia celebrating Dr. Amos C. Sawyer. Dr. Sawyer is the former interim president of Liberia and also former professor and a whole lot of things that he was. So this afternoon, we are here to celebrate Dr. Amos C. Sawyer. I'm being joined by my co-host, someone who knew Dr. Sawyer very, very well, Dr. K. Moses Nambwe. Prof, welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm glad that you can team up with me for this one.
Thank you, DJ, and it's always a pleasure to be on this forum, and especially on this very important day, the celebrating the life of Dr. Amos C. Sawyer. We call him ACS or Moose.
And that is Moose, Dr. Amos C. Sawyer, ACS, Moose, Professor Sawyer, the one whose speeches as a teenager that I learned to memorize. I hope I can do some tonight. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. The format of this celebration tonight, this afternoon, is we're going to say something about Professor Sawyer, and we'll invite the listener, the public, to call in. The number will be in the ticker right there. Call in and say something about Professor Sawyer, whatever you know about him, a tribute or anything that you can say about the fallen Liberian leader. Again, we want to welcome our viewers. We want to say share the show, invite someone, and to the family of Dr. Sawyer, we say we are here to celebrate the life of this great man. And as we mourn with you, as we also cry with you, we also want to celebrate because his life was a one well lived. Prof?
Yes.
We are, and this is someone you knew. Before we start, I saw a very concise biography of Dr. Sawyer that I want to read for whoever, wherever you are. If you're thinking, who is Dr. Amos C. Sawyer? Let me read this briefly. That's Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer, and I'm proud to say a fellow Sinonian. He was the president of the interim government of National Unity, IGNU, and that was from November 1990 to May 1994. Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer was born in Greenville, Sino County on June 15, 1945. His early education was through the public schools in Maryland County. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in History and Government from the University of Liberia in 1966. And I saw that yearbook, 1966 yearbook of Dr. Sawyer's picture, and he was the same style that is on my hair right now to tell you that things do repeat. Yeah. He had that same hairstyle or the Tottenham style or some kind of Philly Billy. He earned a master's degree of a Master of Arts in Political Science from Northwestern University in Illinois, USA in 1970, and a PhD in political science from the same university in 1973. Dr. Sawyer held many positions at the University of Liberia in the 1970s and 1980s, including assistant professor of political science, associate professor and chair of the Department of Political Science, and dean of the College of Social Science and Humanities. In 1980, when the People's Redemption Council assumed leadership of Liberia, the Constitution, that is the 1847 Constitution, was suspended. From 1981 to 1983, Dr. Sawyer chaired Liberia's National Constitutional Commission, which was responsible for drafting a new constitution for the nation. That commission created the current constitution, and that was the one which was revised and adopted in 1986. For the 1985 election, Dr. Sawyer, according to what we read from Crash, that's a historian, said Dr. Sawyer declined running as the vice president to President Doe. Mm-hmm. He was threatened, according to the story. His house was burned, and his Liberian People's Party was accused of endangering the democratic process and subsequently banned from presidential elections. This came from Frank Crash. And let me get the name, Van de Crash. He writes a lot about.
Yeah. Van de Crash, yes.
Then there was a Banjul conference. The Banjul Accord, held by ECOWAS leaders in August 1990, selected Dr. Sawyer to head the interim government of national unity. His transitional government would administer the affairs of the nation in preparation of elections slated for October 1991. He therefore returned in 1990 to head the nation into a peaceful state after numerous failed peace accords with the rebel factions. The IGNU was replaced by the Liberia National Transitional Government headed by David Bomakbo in 1994. Dr. Sawyer has also held position at Indiana University, the Consortium for Self-Governance in Africa, and other entities. His last position was chairman of the Good Governance Commission of Liberia, which focused on government reforms, finding flaws in government structures and policy, and recommending remedies to rectify those problems. Dr. Sawyer finally, due to his health, retired from politics in late 2021. On February 16, 2022, the former interim leader we heard died at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in the USA. That's a brief story, a brief biography of Dr. Sawyer for those who don't know. Prof, you knew him.
Yes. If you will permit me, I have this short poem that it was part of a little book I did that I titled A Small Group of Young Liberians, How They Changed Things in Liberia.
Yep.
A small group of young Liberians and this poem happens to be part of it's a short poem.
Sure.
And the title is Live, L-I-V-E. Live, so that in your living, many will come to be excited about living. Live, so that in your living, many will never stop praying to God for more humans like you. Live, so that when you leave the world, many will never stop talking about the exciting show you just put up while you were alive. Live, just be sincere and honest about what you do. And if for some reason some people do not understand the importance of your show, let them, when they know, weep and regret their misplaced anger, and later hold up high your name and your God. I said, live. Okay. That is the end of the short poem, DJ. Yes. Dr. Sawyer came in just about the time some of us were entering the University of Liberia. I entered the university just about 1774. And almost immediately, the whole campus was lit up. You couldn't get in that place there and not feel something was happening in that place. Something that will kind of stir the consciousness of young people. And so I know we have an hour to go, and we might return to some of these themes. But I like to start off by saying that if Dr. Sawyer and his colleagues will be remembered, I see two things for which they will be remembered. The first was their political preaching of inclusivity. The idea that a nation cannot be, even if you have a fairly large part of the population, all people in the population must get engaged. If that is not possible, then definitely a lot of things are going to go wrong. So the politics of inclusivity is one of those things that should become the legacy of Dr. Sawyer and his colleagues, some of whom are alive and some of whom are dead. The next thing has to do with the politics of decent governance. The politics of decent governance. And what does that mean? It is in the laws that people formulate. It is in how they formulate those laws. And it is in how people try as much as possible to ensure that those laws are implemented. If there's nothing else, those two things, I believe, have to become the legacy, the set of legacies for the state that we are in, so that whatever is not achieved in their time, it is more like a clarion call to those who will come after them. That must become the preoccupation of those people who are alive today. So I wanted to set that up, and then we can go back and forth on expanding on them.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I like the poem, "Live."
Yeah, thank you.
You know, yeah, that is powerful. It reminds me of even what Edwin James Barclay wrote, and I had that on the poster.
Yeah,
which was and it reads, "Unto the deep and darksome tomb, oh, which the mighty," and don't expect me to read a poem like Professor
no, go ahead.
Ever their fragrance, where the still unbroken silence ever reigns, and not disturbs the hollow sleep of those whom nature has ordained to rest then from their earthly toils. He has been born amid the tears and wailings of his countrymen. He's gone, and like the tender rose has faded from mortal's eye.
Wow.
So, I don't know what you and Edwin Barclay look like. But you know, speaking of Dr. Sawyer, especially for those of us who grew up in the 1980s,
yeah,
and when our siblings, uncles, and cousins were at the university where Dr. Sawyer was teaching, and all these things, you stated two things: inclusivity, and that is very important.
Yeah.
As we even look back and read history about Dr. Sawyer and some of his colleagues,
yes,
you know, they preach a message that, hey, this is what government is.
Yes.
This is what a country should be, and
Yes.
everybody should take part.
Yes.
It is not about this tribe or that ethnic group.
Yes.
It is not about this class or that class. It's like everybody is for all of us, and that's the message they preach. And I'm glad that that his last job was on good governance.
Yes,
something that he stood.
Isn't that something?
For his life.
Yes.
And so that is very important. That is very profound. You know, most of the time, the present generation will look back and say, "Oh, like for us, sometimes you look back and say, oh, we had it best. We had it better than the other people." So when I think of people like Dr. Sawyer, you know, and the rest of his colleagues, you say, wow. I mean, where did this come from? That at such time with this kind of idea, and they did not only speak it, they actually lived it.
Yes.
To me, that is one of the greatest legacy of Professor Sawyer.
You know, last night our program centered on the power of travel and return.
Yeah.
The travel of power and return. The idea that one has an opportunity to leave a specific environment and go out. When you go out, because of your travel, and of course, added to your education, you have certain information. Now, the question is, what do you do with that information? Do you kind of put it in your pocket and just live large and that's it? Or do you bring it back?
Yeah.
So that others will benefit and all of you working together push the country or the environment forward. So here again, talking about Dr. Sawyer, these guys went and studied abroad.
Yeah.
They could have come out of that place there and shut their mouths and gotten fat jobs and move on with their lives. What compelled them to?
Yeah.
The question is, what compelled them to change course and try as much as possible to educate, to dedicate their lives to something of profound nature for the future? What pushed them? it had to be something of generosity. It had to be something of selflessness. And if people cannot see that, those who think these people started a system that before they knew it was hijacked.
Yeah.
Was hijacked. What could they have meaningfully done again to have pulled those things back when these guys had their guns and what have you, and therefore they don't even want to listen to people here and there? Of course, somebody say, well, when it happened, 1 or 2 people were in the government or whatever, but of course that was not all. You see, so I'm just throwing these things out. Maybe others will come and castigate or do whatever they want to do. But the idea is that the essence of selflessness after you've acquired your education, which is I would say the most meaningful thing in terms of some upward mobility.
Yeah, and before we continue, I want us to start from many believe that Dr. Sawyer's first major step on the political scene was the mayoral election.
Yeah. Oh my God!
And I want you to just take me that I'm living at that time. But before you do that, let me bring on our first caller who is calling to say something about Professor Sawyer. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Thank you, Mr. Jai. This is Elvis calling from Minnesota.
Thank you, Elvis.
I just want you to give me a little bit of time. Usually I try to be concise, but I want to say something about Dr. Sawyer. The people from during those days, even though I'm a child born in the 90s, I'm quite young. But I look back on them and I really look at them as my heroes, people who actually fought, like Dr. Number said, people who actually fought for inclusion, and some form of equality, political equality for everybody in the country, regardless of what tribe or what social class you came from. And Dr. Sawyer, being an integral part of that movement during that time, being from Moja, you had the Powell people. And I think those people really had the best, or I won't say the best, but the most important revolution in our country. It's so unfortunate that we didn't get to fully realize it because of the military takeover, like Dr. Nama was saying. But Dr. Sawyer, especially being that he refused really to be sullied by the military regime. He came out of it and actually got the biggest position of all. While some of his colleagues was rushing to get positions and be so closely associated with the military government, he kind of took a step back and later on became the interim president. And another thing I think most people don't mention about him, he was an incredibly brave person. When the city of Monrovia was being approached by belligerent rebel factions from all areas, he stood his ground. He wasn't taking any mess from Charles Taylor. He wasn't taking any mess from Prince Johnson. He was a man who had courage. So I think that's one thing that we also have to mention about him. And I just want to say, overall, he made a great impact along with other progressives in our country. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't fully realized because of the war and some other issues that came up. But like the last thing I want to say is about the good governance. I talk about organizations that we have in our country currently that could really help galvanize our people around the idea of good governance, good democracy, and really fully getting a good understanding of what democracy entails for every citizen in our country. And I think Dr. Sawyer was trying to do his best, and he actually did a lot of good work in trying to get us to understand what good governance is. So I think his legacy is one that is definitely definitely stands above some of his colleagues who sullied themselves with trying to be so closely attached to government and a government that was corrupt and not doing the will of the people. So thank you again, Mr. Jai. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Evans, before you go, and you say you were born in 1990, because what you are saying, I don't hear that from anyone born in the 90s. So I must commend you.
Thank you again. I mean, I'm a student of history, and I look back and I really see a lot of things that we need today that we don't get in our generation. We need people who will rise up and fight against this corruption and have organizations that go directly to the people to tell them what they need to do to get better leaders. I'm really hoping for it. Although sometimes you got to be the change that you want rather than hoping for the change that you need. So maybe we all need to come together and maybe start an organization like what they had during those days that will conscientize our people. You know, because I think our problem is from the root. We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it. And I think either somebody has to come up with the idea, or some of us have to governize ourselves and try to come up with something to help our people from the grassroots levels. So
thank you.
Again,
Thank you,
Thank you, Evan. Prof, you heard the wartime baby.
Yes.
Because I've been doing this thing for some few years now, and what I hear from especially people born in the 90s, they kind of try to paint a broad brush on everyone.
Yes, you're
in
right.
fact, one of them look at me and say, "You people, you old people." I say, "Really?" So there is a sense that everybody before them was bad.
Yes. And that is why we started talking earlier. That is why I will not stop celebrating this program. I don't mean this session. I'm talking about the project itself, which is focused on Liberia. The idea that there is almost a constant barrage of information, you know, that whether some people do not want to watch these program sessions and what have you, still there is a way for some of the information to filter to them. And it's very much important. That is all that we need. Is no stopping. That's why it's not just the electronic. There's got to be books and all those things there. That avalanche, you turn this way, there is information. You turn the other way, there is information. We've got to be able to do that. And what that gentleman, that young man, 90s, you know, that shows the level of consciousness of that guy.
Yeah.
If only we have a few of them to really look at, you know, to open up the history of our country and be able to see what men and women of substance have done and what still needs to be done. That would be a very good thing coming out of a forum like the Focus on Liberia Forum.
Thank you. And before Elvis could come in, we're talking about Dr. Sawyer's first big move in national politics was the mayoral election.
Oh my God!
I was not there. Some of our listeners were not there. You take us back to that time.
Yeah, it was electricity. You know, it was not a conscious arrangement, but things turned out to be that you had the men themselves, the heroes themselves were in it, and then you had the closest ring of young people were full soldiers, and then you had a second ring just like that. As you, it was like you talk about Saturn, that planet Saturn, with the ring around it. That's what it was. So some of us were like in the second ring of things that were happening in that place there, especially, you know, having at a point become Assistant Secretary General of the Sub-led government.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of sensitizing the population was there. But then the question was, what impactful step can be taken, should be taken to get these things? Because actually, you know, whether it is politics or whatever, theory by itself doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Theory has to be put into practice. And that question of putting theory into practice brought in the need for a campaign like the mayoral campaign that Dr. Sawyer designed. Because just about that time, they said the space was open for another round of mayoral election, and Dr. Sawyer decided, look, I am going to test these waters, and of course, everybody rallied around him. Yes, you have to test this water, and that's where
that phrase, testing the system.
Yes,
we have to test the system. It's from that mayor campaign that it became popular in Liberia. Up to now, every time I hear it, I think of Dr. Sawyer.
Yeah, we had to test this system. And sure enough, the system had to be tested. And oh my God, the fire that was blazing on the university campus, the fire that was blazing through Monrovia. Especially, there was the symbol, the broom.
Yeah.
I will remember one important incident where Dr. Sawyer and Chuchu Horton. Yeah. Chuchu Horton was the one who was brought forth from the WP group to be faced off with Dr. Sawyer. And one serious night, these two were slated to debate at the Topman Hall, the auditorium.
Yeah, University of Liberia.
The University Auditorium. What? DJ, I'm telling you, brother.
So you are saying you go into a water to fight with fish?
Yes. Look, all the comrades and all those people, we were. I said it was a night. Now, to get Dr. Sawyer, because Dr. Tipote and others were accompanying him to that debate. DJ, the mammoth turnout. It was like Sawyer and the main group going in there. It was like wading through a flood of water. Wading through a flood of water. Guys had to link hands to make sure that nothing happened to them. Nothing happened to Dr. Sawyer and his colleagues going up there. So it was like, you hold my hand, I hold your hand, you hold, just like that, and create a pathway for them to pass.
Wow.
But even so, oh man, I will never forget that night. Even so, it was not easy.
Did they actually debate? Did they debate?
Come in.
Okay.
You think I would just waste the whole story like that? I know. So.
No, but Prof, before you even go to that, they build it up. What happened? Was it the first mayoral election? Were they having other elections before this time?
No. That was the first one.
This is 1977, 78.
Yes. See, so this thing I'm telling you, look, some of us, our hearts were in our mouths. We thought there was going to be a breakout of something very detrimental to the people's lives. So, when you are entering Topman Hall, especially trying to get on stage, there is the stairway. There is a stairway before you get to the entrance. They got to the entrance before some of us kind of release our breath. Oh God, thank God they've made it up there. They got down, they sat down, and the waiting began. People were making little speeches here and there, what have you. Shortly into the time, they said Chuchu Horton was not coming.
What?
Yes. They said Chuchu Horton declined to appear. So anyway, AS went ahead and made a stirring speech. Yes. Talking about the importance of the respect for law, talking about the importance of inclusivity and so many things that were akin to good governance and all those things.
Wow.
Yes.
And the mayoral election itself was never held.
No, it was not held.
Why?
Well, that they put other things in the way, and by the time you knew it, and of course, the agitation was getting almost at a height now, and the trouble-led government had to call the election.
Pull it back.
What one thing that night, at that time I was living in West Point. that night we ran from the campus, singing all kinds of choo-choo, roll, choo-choo, choo-choo ran away and all that kind of a thing. We ran from the University of Liberia all the way. Many of us who had come from West Point, we ran all the way into the heart of West Point.
Wow.
The whole night chanting the importance of, inclusion and all that kind of a thing.
Still talking about Dr. Sawyer, ladies and gentlemen, if you were just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, and we are celebrating the life of Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer.
Yeah.
Talking about the man, Dr. Sawyer, another big political move was the Constitution, chairman of the 1983 Constitution.
Yes.
In 1983. I brought this up because today there were some people, maybe I'll call them ill-informed people, who blame Dr. Sawyer for the Constitution.
Okay. In December, in April 1988, at that time, Dr. Sawyer had left the country. They were after his life and what have you, and so he took refuge in the United States. It was about a year after he left the country that I came to the United States. There was a program. I don't know whether the program still continues. The program was International Visiting Fellowship, and it was often awarded to college professors, lawyers, writers, and people who are supposed to be the energy of every society, those who are supposed to be activists and all that. And I happen to have gotten one scholarship like that. It was a 2-month scholarship, 2 or thereabout. And unbeknowingly, because actually I didn't know that Dr. Sawyer was in Indiana. I had a slate of at least 5 states to visit, and one of those states happened to have been Indiana. That was where I would say accidentally I met Dr. Sawyer.
Wow.
And he and I, because we enjoyed each other's company, and so when he heard that, he offered to take me around at an Indiana University, where he was part of what is called a political science workshop.
Yeah.
That was where he sat with me, a couple of times, and told me significant part of the role he played, and how, as you were talking about DeGrasse, the guy who said something about Doe having asked Dr. Sawyer to become vice president.
Yeah.
Dr. Sawyer told me that. Dr. Sawyer told me that, and told me how that became part of the tension that was created between him and Doe. Now, the other part, of course, at some point, people will have to say this and say that, but after Sawyer refused, Doe decided to pick Whisper to Kesseley.
Yeah.
So that became the orientation. That became what you would call some part of influence. I'm not saying that totally that influenced Kesseley's group, how they kind of chopped up the constitution, what have you. But that some of the changes that came, especially with the Gbanga group, came out of the whispers he Doe had with Kesseley. There are many things that that were of the first draft, the Sawyer draft,
Right.
that at the Wanga session they kind of strip off.
Right.
As I'm saying, it is not to say that Kesseley alone had the power to have done those changes or what have you, but it is not far-fetched to say that the conversation he had with Doe impacted that. And then, of course, he himself at some point fell off with Doe as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you can see maybe after the changes from the Sawyer draft were implemented, Doe decided to just boot him out, and because he got what he wanted now, and he could move on.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the pieces I skipped there even before the Constitution was I think it was 82 or 83 oration, the national oration that Dr. Sawyer gave. Yeah, and that was a speech, and I'm still trying to ask people if anybody, because 3 speeches in the country that I remember as a teenager, that I tried to memorize was that of 1983 oration.
Yes.
The other speech was when he submitted his LPP credentials to the Election Commission.
Yes.
And then the third speech, not from Dr. Sawyer, but the 1985 University of Liberia commencement speech delivered by Councillor Tubman or Winston Tubman.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Those were remarkable speeches that up to today, like the people were, you know, I mean, they were far ahead of time. So let's go back to the oration. And this is the line I remember. Anytime I think about it, I say, well, at a time that people were rejoicing that, you know, there's a revolution, you know, the TWP has been overthrown. And Dr. Sawyer said this as far as I can remember. He said, I do not believe that all the, and I will try to make my Sawyer voice. I do not believe that all those things in our past were bad. Neither do I believe that all those things which were bad in our immediate past could be solely attributable to Mr. Turbert.
Yes.
If we Liberians are to construct a future, that future should be constructed against the background of our past, realizing the objective of where we are going and how we get where we are.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to remember that, so when I think about that and say this man was far ahead of time, he was thinking in the future. Why everybody was saying yes, we, you know, our eyes are open. We
that's right.
Is overthrown. This man is saying, hey, it's not everything that happened was bad. And we can even attribute all of them to Mr. Tubbs.
Yes. In other words, if we must be critical, we must be critical with a very sound mind.
Yes.
See, you have to be critical with a sound mind. Otherwise, you know, what we are saying will just be nonsense.
And the second part of Dr. Sawyer is interim government. I mean, that's the third. We see the Chuchu Hutton campaign. We see the Constitution, and the third big one was interim president. Liberia is engulfed in war. I mean, and it's just ugly.
Yes.
You know, there's nobody, and we are there killing one another. A group met in Banjul, and I mean, Dr. Sawyer at that time was like the symbol of, you know, when it comes to political science. I mean, who else can you call? And who was so kind of, I would use the word meek, understanding, someone who can unite, more compromising. It's not this militancy, oh, we got to go and just finish everybody. I mean, so he became a natural choice. And in that interim government, Prof, you even worked there.
Yes, I did.
And you came close to Dr. Sawyer leading the interim government. Tell me about his role in the interim government and his work.
At that time, there had to be someone with a consensus building mind.
Yes.
You know, because actually all sort of politicians, we would say, were part of that. That group was a motley group, a group of so many colors. That's what it was. And so to navigate problems, to navigate ideas and what have you, continue to be a challenge. And yet, Dr. Sawyer, in his, in Crew, I talked about it the last time. In Crew, I guess it's a choir group, and I think it's also something extended to the other indigenous groups, ethnic groups. It is a perspective that the people hold, which is that when someone is very well versed in his or her subject, our people will always say that that person was on the scene in heaven when God was distributing skills and talents. And so when you've proved that you master your subject, they will say he was there when God distributed the skills. He was there when God distributed the skills. Or G plural. So that was the kind of person Dr. Sawyer was. Would there be no time that he would express his frustration? Yes, of course, he's human. But the thing about the faults of an individual is that unintentional faults are likely to be forgiven than faults that you indulge in because you don't have any other thing to restrain you. And Dr. Sawyer was not like that. Dr. Sawyer tried as much as possible to get to a point of having us have meeting of the minds, a slew of compromises and what have you. And yet he had to always analyze those things before he made his choice. So that even those who may not have agreed with him at some point will want to respect the outcome of whatever decision he came to. So in the case of, there was a time that during his administration, there was a time that the question came up, should we go to Libya? There was a moment that they had to go to Libya. If you remember, Charles Taylor and a few of his men trained in Libya. And therefore, much support was still coming from Libya to prop up Taylor. And in fact, I did a book on Bishop Dixon, the gentleman who was with the deaf and dumb. And through one of our sessions, there was this scene where the Libyan leader, when people were trying to push Taylor to the far corner of Liberia and say, we're going to always, Gaddafi would say, nobody should touch my son. Nobody should touch my boy.
Meaning Taylor.
Of whom was he speaking? Taylor.
Wow.
And so, yes. And so that impacted the energy of J.J. Rollins and a few others who wanted to give Joshua Dogoniaro the power to say, well, let this guy get out because he is troubling us too much, let him get out. So that also had an impact. And the question was, so should we go to Libya? Others thought that was a risky trip to take. But having hung heads with people here and there, Dr. Sawyer and a key man decided to go to Libya to sit with Gaddafi.
Wow.
Yeah. So the short of the long is that Dr. Sawyer, he was not someone who would take decisions independent of. He always sought consensus, and I think he recognized the weight that was on him in that period, and therefore consensus building had to be an important aspect of his policy to keep peace going in the country.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can call the number on your screen to be a part of this celebration. We are celebrating the life of Professor Dr. Amos C. Sawyer.
Yeah.
The number to call here is 605-313-6004. We have little more time to go. The code 791403 pound.
And,
Go
and
ahead, Prof.
he was a teaser. Dr. Soya was a teaser. If he heard about a joke on you, that guy will mess with you and he will laugh his guts out and all that kind of a thing. He was, he was an approachable person. He was personable.
Right.
We will miss him a whole lot.
A few tributes are rare here and there. That's
Mhm.
what most of them say. Like the one for Dr. Al-Hassan
Conte.
Yeah. Was talking about his when he needed something from the university to go out.
Yes.
And he couldn't get it. So the last hope was to approach Dr. Sawyer, who was beginning as a departmental chair at that time.
Yes.
He said, without wasting time, he just pulled a paper and hand wrote.
Yeah. No, he was good. He was good at that. I mean, there wasn't, once it had to do with academics, there wasn't any hurdle that he would not just haul away and make sure he virtually held your hand to go where you wanted both of you to go. I remember in 1981, he was kind of getting into. He was going. I mean, he had just become the dean of Liberia College, and just within the twinkling of an eye, he got my papers all set up. And when I got to Rowan State University, things that were required from the university in terms of support and what have you, he was there. Dr. Sawyer was there to ensure that those things were put in place. And when it was time for me to return, I mean, just like lightning of a thunder, he just told me, well, look, just tell me when these people are coming and what have you, and all other things will be set up. And sure, that's what he did. Wow. And there are several, it's not only me, there are several people to attest to what I'm talking about. The speed with which, when academics came, he was there to get things moving.
And talking about that, because those things that he did cut across any line you can imagine.
Yes.
So that it made me, and let me confess that those of us from Sino, we felt like this is our own Sino boy. We
what is he doing, right? Yes.
But almost everyone who would talk about Dr. Sawyer, I mean, you could see across ethnic group, across counties, and across class.
And DJ, the thing about it is that was the culture these people were building.
Yeah.
The Tipotes, the Sawyers, and the families. And what this was the culture they were building. That, look, if I must help you, you must show the reason why I should help you. It should not have anything to do with your background.
Yeah.
Once you are willing to establish and prove your consciousness about learning, not only that, but also keeping in mind that all Liberians are one, and that what is good for Paul must be good for Flomo and what have you, I am with you all the way.
Yeah.
So whether it was at a point where they will have lunch, especially at Tipote's parents' place, that was always their meeting ground. Whether it was there or at particular headquarters and what have you, they were open. As much as humanly possible, they were open.
Yeah. Let me read some comments from our viewers here. Brim Dustin is watching us from Vanjama City in Lofa.
Yes.
Evans Morris, he called earlier, said, Dr. Sawyer is my uncle-in-law. His nephew, Wendy Sawyer, is married to my maternal aunt.
Okay.
Rest in peace, Doc. People's son, say, rest in peace, Dr. Sawyer.
Yeah.
Darius Greenfield, so it should continue.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Johnson, Dr. Sawyer was my political science professor.
Yeah.
Right, Professor. Thanks for the program, Mr. Jai and Prof. Nambe. Okay. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Johnson.
Dave just said, now the broom has re-emerged. What are your thoughts, Prof? So the broom that was used, the broom has come back. Thomas continued, I was at the university. The cancer mayoral election was electric, but dashed our hopes when it
Yes.
was cancer.
Yes, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Okay. Coming to Dr. Soon to be Dr. Ja. Coming to him, the broom will be our legacy. I mean, his legacy, and it's going to continue with us. It is more like a path forward, and that path must always be cleared by the broom symbol that he introduced. Of course, it was more like a reintroduction of that broom because sometime, I think it was either in the 1800s or the 1900s, that some women were called forth to drive away one of the political leaders, and the ladies emerged and they had brooms.
Oh.
And they were sweeping away this political leader they didn't want in the corridors of power in the country. And so their broom, the Sawyer broom, our broom, was more of a reaffirmation of history, except that rather than what those ladies did to kind of side with one group out there and drive away the other group, the broom of the Sawyers and the Tipotes was that of, and should continue to be that of, cleaning the dirt, the indecency out of society, and making sure that we work together to
Right.
bring a clear future that all of us should be happy about.
Right. Indeed, the indecency, the decadence,
Yes.
the corruption
Mhm.
have all
Yeah.
done us so much harm, and they
Yes.
need to be swept away.
Yes.
Few more comments here. William K. McDavid, Dr. Sawyer was a political giant and a true patriot. He
Yes.
will truly be missed.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Doc. Joe Moyu, Amos Sawyer was a radio announcer on ELBC
Yes.
before he left for further studies
Yes.
in the US.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And William is watching from Maryland.
Okay.
Dr. Edison Pajibo, right?
Oh,
I'm learning so
wow.
much from Professor Nambe, but how I wish that he would have taught me in a classroom setting. He is a noble Liberian and erudite professor.
Oh my
He also writes, whatever could be the criticism level against the layer of politicians Professor Dr. Amos Sawyer belongs to, we should nevertheless credit them with the breadth of political socialization
Yes.
bequeathed to the Liberian people.
Yes.
But for these cream of politicians
Yes.
who have even known what
Yes.
is real politics in Liberia. If it were
Dr.
not for them,
Pajibo, I celebrate you. Thank you.
yeah. And Burma Freeman said, may his soul rest in peace. Let me take a few more calls here as we are drawing down. This one is our own man, Jimmy Eastman, who is calling right from the nation's capital, not too far from where Biden lives. Jimmy,
Yes.
you live.
Hey, I like the way now I'm going to call you DJ. That's my name for you going on. Dr. Nambe, always good to hear your talking and your speech. Dr. Sawyer was truly a luminary, you know, but he came at a time that there was actually a light in darkness at that LU campus. He taught me social sciences, and I learned more about Liberian history, the choir group, the Mende groups, all for Dr. Sawyer.
Yes.
But here's my question, and this question specifically is for Dr. Nambe.
Yeah.
Why has the candle gone out? These things that they were brought to bring the torch that Dr. Sawyer was carrying, I have been taught that from my family members long ago that it should be inclusive. I mean, I go down to Edwin Barclay, I go down to Port. All of us have told us this. So Sawyer was really carrying the torch.
Yes.
But why has this light gone out today? Why we don't see this illumination anymore? And I'll take my question off the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know, at the heart of it is the interregnum that occurred between the time, the sensitivity, the sensitizing of the Liberian people was almost getting to a peak when what will become the big Gulf, we have not been able to bridge that gulf from that point, my brother. If the coup had not occurred, I can wager that there would have been more profound type of sensitization in that country than it is now. That period, I will call it the dark days of our time. And in those dark days, people who wanted to forever silence, cut off the light and let it never come back again, those people made use of that dark period to sow all kinds of misinformation and all that.
Yes.
And that has been living with us to this point.
Yeah. No, that is very, very true. I remember when we were in the long lines,
Yes.
in the bellies of the rebels.
Yes.
I mean, what we were being told over and over was, oh, all the book people spoil the country.
Yes.
These people spoil Liberia.
Yes.
We were all here on cloud nine, and this is what they did. But these people were talking. And even as today, I hosted a few politicians here and say, oh, what did they do? Why was it a rice riot? Why they did this? In which country that politicians never talk? People must always criticize the people in power and even want to yank, I want to use that word, power away from them. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
And people should do it. So why are you decrying politicians for saying, hey, this is wrong? In fact, the price of gas or the price of rice is high. We complain of inflation all the time.
Yes.
So what's wrong when people go and say, hey, things shouldn't be like this? And people
they can be done better. Yes.
Yeah. And people are doing it today, but they say those who did it before, they were wrong. They were supposed to be quiet and just clap.
Quiet.
But now they too, they are talking. So
yes.
That's the irony.
You see, that's the irony of it all.
We have a caller here from Philadelphia, I believe. Caller, your name.
My name is Jackson. I'm calling you from Pennsylvania.
You said Jackson?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jackson. You're live.
You know, the last point you can make is point out about education. Those guys were educated. They set up their life, their family, to fight for us. Nobody ever realized it. My uncle was involved in the revolution. Mr. Porter, Gabriel Porter.
Yes.
A class teacher. Who founded the Student Unification Party.
Yes.
I can say this is our generation. I can say this is not our generation. Because I don't know how long I'm going to live for, but I know how long I've been living. But those guys who has hijacked power right now, they're not reading the revolution. They're not reading what happened before. All you want to do is you read yourself. What was discussed yesterday about the government was running away to come to America and what is doing today? What was happening those days? Those were the criticized, the coordinate, for nothing poor people. That what affected us today. When the broad ancestors wars, they said poor people were not poor people brought the trouble, and a lot of people not went to school, and now we're trying to revamp, and those people that went to school during the war, so are half educated, they got power right now.
Yeah.
You go to the University of Liberia that we argue about, that they poor bill that was small, you say it was small, you're there now, you're paying new one, you're paying bigger one. Those people have platform. Give up for have platform. He died fighting for a cause. Because people who are living right now, who are part of the revolution, they're still living. Nobody going to praise them. As soon as you call and they say, oh, they are fair politicians. Because they didn't get marshal. That are 2.90 protest. He didn't get marshal anywhere. He didn't get big plantation somewhere, or he didn't get big estate anywhere. It's politics is not about enriching yourself. It's about talking for the people that you think for the life to improve.
Thank you.
I respect that the Emerson arrest some of his pieces. I respect other people who still living right now, who fought for the revolution, people who died, people who like children became wayward because they were fighting for the things that people today, the coordinate today, they can't remember now that effort. It's still not a content belated. Those people, their platform, those are people who make those things to happen. Some of them are still living. I think it's time for us to make them to explain why they did what they did, so people can know. Those who want to listen will listen. People always call you failure. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
People always got need to call you. But can we make the platform? Can we elevate the platform for people to tell why they fought those regimes, why they went, they did what they did, why they were in the classroom? Because I got people who got PhD, young people, they can't even bring you to go to the classroom because they have PhD, they got right now. All they want to do is enrich themselves. They don't care to even go teach the next man.
Yeah.
Those who have PhD, they went by to teach the next man. They were talking about that. The primary family, they all were classroom teachers around here.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And I remember that the news when Gabriel Pole entered the he said, if for a 2-year-old 9 teacher, Gabriel William Pole, that's how they were describing him.
Yes.
And to us, 42 was so much big age. Now
Yeah, that's right. That's
said,
right.
Really? This was a young man. Let me,
Yeah.
and that is very profound, that we look back and say, oh, these people didn't do anything. They don't have this. Oh, what did they do? They were the one who spoiled Liberia and all the 9 yards. But what they did, imagine if Bacchus Matthew had social media platform.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine that.
If Formula had a smartphone.
Yes.
These people were doing this thing on stenograph.
Yes.
And they will type all their fingers. Here, you don't even have to strike the keys.
Yes.
By the time you do this,
yes.
So with all the limitations.
With all the limitations.
So remarkably well.
With
I remember
all the limitations.
when I read this or the library anthology, anytime I picture it, actual typewritten.
Yes.
And they staple it. The sheets are so by the time you hold it too much, it's breaking apart.
Yes.
And that's what they did to inform us. William McDavis, you are live. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you ever so much for the show. First, before I say something, I just want to extend my heartfelt sympathy to Comfort Sawyer, to Joe, the brother, and Archie.
Yes.
I'm William K. McDavis.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you like insight from the security side of how Sawyer handled the interim government when he was president.
Okay.
Because at the time, prior to that, I worked for the Special Security Service during the period of the Dou regime, and I was one of those who were, and survived at the Freeport capture, which I'm not going to go into.
Wow.
But I can remember kindly when the interim government came to Monrovia, and then the ECOMO came also, and then Sawyer, of course, came with his own boy, like Mason Go and the other people like Charles Camara, them, they were playing the role as security to him, But when he came to Monrovia, being a man who caution and know that, security are out of, politics, he decided to inquire in order to, and restructure the remnant of the Special Security Service at the time. So he started acting all around, and then luckily we're able to get some few SSS people. And one of those that he got in contact with was Rufus Kennedy. And then he called Rufus Kennedy at the time. He was Connor. He said, Rufus, man, your boys, then please try to get them, so that they can come to help us with this interim government. I hope I'm not talking long, because I wish this will be my tribute to the Liberian people so they will know who Sawyer is, because some people look at him from the political side, they got all kind of things to say. But Jesus Christ himself, people say all kind of stuff about him. But I want to tell you a true story, So when they get a few people together, I was living in New Bhutan even before the war, and some of our friends who were in the security from the mansion, they came over to the house. They said, "Oh, my man, the interim government here in town." That was 1991. You just imagine, you talk about 1990, September 9. I was one of the survivors from Freeport, so I was done with security, And then when this guy, they start coming, then they say, man, Rufus Kennedy want to see you. So I went over to Ducor. When I went over to Ducor, and then Rufus Kennedy encouraged us, say, look, man, we have to come in. This is what we stand for. We had to do. It was in a space of time. It was just like a godsend. And Dr. Sawyer was coming from upstairs, right in the lobby, and Rufus was with the guys. So he came, we lay bow-legged, he said, how you doing, man? You know, and right there, he's trying to encourage us, the reason why he wants us. And one of the things that he said that stick to me today, he said, look, we know what Liberians have gone through. He said, if I can leave the glorious land of America to come here in the war-torn country to come and help to put these pieces together, you know, we need people like you to come and help us so that we can work this thing together. Right there, that was a change of mind. I consented that I would work for the interim government. And then when I worked for the interim government, I become the commander on his presidential motorcade. And then later on, I was transferred to the late Bishop D, the vice president, to be the commander, because we have gotten most people now from SSS, you know. And then when they set up the 5-man council of state, they late Desmond Quillon, who was then the speaker, they made him one of the council members. I was transferred to on the detail of Desmond Quillon. And then when he was removed, and then Philip Bang came in, I was assigned to Philip Bang. Why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this that I've got to know the Dr. Sawyer. That's why I just wrote an essence in that for say Dr. Sawyer was a true patriot. Sometimes the defining of the word patriot, people think that by you jumping in the street, you wear red, or you hear things, you organize demonstration, it means you are patriot. No, it means somebody who has the country at heart. There are 3 things that I want to leave with your audience that Dr. Sawyer did during the interim period time that is not talked about. Number one, has to do the name of SKD today. Why the football field retained the name SKD. I can remember 1994, there was a peace march between Togo and Liberia in order to bring, you know, kind of, you know, say where Liberia is moving now, you know, towards peace. And there were some of his advisors, I'm not going to call name, that went to him, say, Dr. Sawyer, we got to change our football name. We got to change the field name. We can name it National Stadium. One thing that Dr. Sawyer said, he looked at his advisor, he said, you tell me, how many of you that here, including me, that have done much for sports in Liberia than Samuel Doe? He said, we have to stop this, to wipe away our history. This man has done so much for sport that I don't think that this football field deserves any other name that had the name stick. Number one. Number two, why? Excuse me, I'm kind of so, you know, emotional right now when I talk about Dr. Sawyer.
Yeah, take your time.
Number two has to do with Taylor. When the interim government, the first 5-man council of statement organized during the Liberian conference, Taylor State insisted that he is now going to join. At the time, you have a chief of staff who was Azim Musa was on the council. And Azim Musa, he said, Azim Musa, I'm coming to Monrovia. He's now going to join the peace talk. And every night, Sawyer will work at the phone. He will work the phone to talk to Taylor until they had to set up what we call a confident trip to Banga. Sawyer said, well, if that be the case, you have to send delegation to Banga to come to the Banga so we can sit and talk. And who was volunteered to go to Banga was Philip Bang, who was then the Minister of Justice, and I believe, and representative, and how they call it, and I forgot the Sano representative was on our trip.
Oh,
you know.
okay. Maybe
And then when we came back, Milton Tiege was on our trip. I was on our trip. And when we went to Banga, the perception that Taylor gave those young men that were fighting in Banga, that if you go to Monrovia, they will kill you. So everybody was afraid of Monrovia. And these guys were tired of the war. But that was how they were so indoctrinated. And then, and when nothing happened, what happened was that we're able to organize. So that will bring the changing of the money now. Let me talk on the money. The Liberty and then
the JJ.
The changing of the Liberty and then the JJ Robert. You know, because the Banga government were using the JJ Robert, the Monrovia government were using the JJ Robert. So in one way to squeeze Taylor was to print the Liberty, which the people said that Sawyer was not authorized. In fact, the government was entering why he had to print money. This is why he printed the money, my Lagran people. In order to subdue Taylor, they print that money, and then the money became what? A legal tender for the Republic of Liberia. So as a result, the embargo was already on Taylor in Buchanan Port. He could not get anything. And Taylor was so afraid that these people might revolt against him. So what he did was that he was giving the money to his fighter to come to Monrovia to buy stuff. So we set up a camouflage zone where, as a money changer, all these were security guys, you know, joint security. We took the money, the Liberty. This guy come from Banga. When he come to Monrovia, they changed the JJ Robert to Liberty. They buy whatever they want to buy. When they want to go back to Banga, then what happened? There was no JJ Robert that he could get. And then we burn all the money. So that's subdued Taylor. So in all I'm saying here is that Liberia, you know, we have lost a great man. And sometimes we sit down, we look, we say, well, are we going to have, what are this generation? Who are they going to look up to be inspired? Say, you know what? I want to be like this person. When I joined the Special Security Service, I was inspired by the SSS personnel that I saw on Tobo Modoke, 1979. When I saw them, I said, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And I know how long it takes in order to become a part of that organization. And you know what happened? There was a fight in between. Because when, on March, let me close on this thing. March 22nd, 1993, Dr. Sawyer was supposed to go to Sierra Leone on an official visit. And guess what? I was recommended by Dr. Sawyer to be the team leader of the advanced team to Sierra Leone. Because why? When he read my profile, I went to school in Sierra Leone. I could speak the Creole, and I understand the language and the culture in Sierra Leone. And now you're talking about war fighting in Sierra Leone and war fighting in Liberia. So which kind of security men will be better prepared to go to Sierra Leone in order to set up, you know, a safe zone for the head of state or the president of Liberia to go to Sierra Leone? And then when we came from that trip, he was supposed to go to Waterloo, where we had the Sierra Leone refugees, the Liberian refugees. But that trip was canceled due to security reasons. And when we get on board the flight coming back to Monrovia, he came over to my seat and said, thank you for your job that you have done. And when he died, it passed here in the U.S., I went to the funeral. And when Dr. Sawyer, with his colleague, a little man like me, just a security guard, when Dr. Sawyer look at people like, you know, talk about Drew Mason then, all the big guys, and get up to see the father funeral to the reception and look at me and say, you see this guy? This was one of those that saved my life in Monrovia. For that, I was proud to do what I did. And I will do it all over again with no regret.
Thank you so much.
May God perpetually shine on you. You have done it. These are the people that are called the unsung heroes. Yes. Those are the stories that people don't know about some of the politicians. They just look at what they can read or see on the surface. But inwardly, this man was a real patriot of Liberia. So to his wife, again, comfort. And to his brother, we always call Uncle Joe and Archie. My heartfelt sympathy to you, and my thoughts and prayer will always be to the family. Thank you very much for giving me this time.
Thank you, Mr. McDavis, and thank you also for your service.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Yes.
You heard from someone who was very close to.
Yes. On the other side of the whole world of national service, as he was talking about, profound.
Yeah, very, very profound. Well, we are coming to the end of this program. Prof, you work with Dr. Sawyer. You saw him close from the university and also in politics. Who would you say was Dr. Sawyer for us to close?
He was someone excited about life. He was someone excited also about change, and given the opportunity, was willing to go a number of miles to ensure that change. And that change was not a selfish change, but a selfless change. We continue to need people like that to move Liberia forward.
Wow. Another phrase I heard from Dr. Sawyer was the Liberian mosaic. Yeah.
Yes. He played with that word a whole lot. Yes,
yeah, these are things that I'm not saying he introduced them.
Yes.
But being in high school, elementary, these were things that I heard from listening to him, reading.
He gave them force. Yes.
Yeah, like okay, this is Liberia is like a big picture.
Yes.
Out of like a puzzle.
Yes.
If one piece is taken out, the whole country is incomplete.
Yes, that's right.
And that is very profound.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. The Liberian mosaic.
Yes. Yeah, you remember that for sure. Yes. He loved that word.
Yeah. And it's very true. Even during the when he was interim president, and besides the telling people to lay down their arms.
Yes.
And even himself, his jingles and ads will be on radio.
Yes.
And one of it I remember said, if you're home and you have a young child, and I'm not going to quote it verbatim, he said, if you have a young child in your home, look at him.
Yes.
Look at him and think about this child that has been programmed to kill. And that was a very powerful act.
In fact, not to call you, that was his enough is enough speech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was his enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Yeah,
that's another word. And concomitantly.
Yeah, concomitantly. Yes.
Dr. Sawyer will really miss you. You've impacted the life of so many.
Yes.
Growing up, and my brother Dave is like my own mentor. So wherever he went, there we were. So by the time I got to Monrovia, among us, most of the Southeasterners that were in Nukuta and those places were divided between LPP and UP.
Yes.
We were either for Amos Sawyer or Blackers.
Yes.
So most of our relatives in Nukuta were all the Murphy boys.
Yes.
And then my brother now, Dave, and some of our in-laws, they were, and cousin Enoch, they were the Sawyer boys.
So
it was like,
boys,
so that's how we grew up. Those are the people we grew up, trying to be like.
Yes.
We love what they were saying. The message resonated with us so much.
Yes.
Maybe we were in second or third grade when we already formed part of Soup and Moja and LPP without even knowing what they were.
Yes,
but,
that's right.
Anytime there was vacation and our siblings came down to Sino, these were the messages, inclusion, people having power, and all those things. And so this was a life well lived, and we want to appreciate the Sawyer family for as one rebel said, for donating Sawyer to us. He said this guy was assigned somewhere.
Yeah.
He used to say, "Charter, donate me here." So everybody should listen to him. So
I know.
Thank the family of Dr. Sawyer for donating him to Liberia.
Dr. Sawyer. He served his time very well.
Yeah. Prof, your last word and we'll close. Now we have a caller at a time that we turn our phone off. So Mr. Kone, you can call my number and quickly do your 1 minute. But go ahead, Prof.
Yes. Life is of such that someone stays around for some time and all of a sudden you forget that one day he's going to pass or she's going to pass. And so it's often painful that when you least expect, when that person passes, it kind of does something to you. You know, I will really miss Dr. Sawyer very much. He played an important part in not only my life but the life of my generation, and we just hope that the good Lord will look upon him and remember the story of old Abu Ben Adam.
Prof, before you end your thought, let me bring in Mr. Wilmot Cooney. He's also our chief political analyst here, but he's someone who saw Mr. Sawyer close.
Okay.
Mr. Cooney.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dennis, for this beautiful show of paying tribute to someone that I would refer to as one of the national icons for our country, both in academia, in politics, and in activism. Dr. Sawyer's contribution to Liberia would be something that would be difficult to match. I had my close encounter with Dr. Sawyer during the interim governor of National Unity. I was privileged to have been appointed deputy director of the National Security Agency. I served that agency during the entire period of Dr. Sawyer's tenure as interim president. Now, the prof would know, and most Liberians know, the history of that agency prior to the war. And so, when I got to the agency, I began to come very close to Dr. Sawyer. The politics, everything that you were preaching, but I began to see them in practice. And just a couple of things. I remember one time the Daily Observer, they wrote a story about Dr. Sawyer, and they put a story on the back page. Another story that was very important based on the editorial judgment of Daily Observer was on the front page. And you know, Dennis, typical of what our people do, you know, in every government you find these single points. Everybody that want to play to the ear of the president.
Yeah.
I saw one official of the interim government running to Dr. Sawyer to his suite at the Duca, completely out of breath. And Dr. Sawyer said, Mr. President, you see the first thing that the journalists do? Look at putting you on front page. The president's supposed to always be on front page. Yeah, you had to go put you on back page. Just look at him and laugh. And you know, he had a way of accommodating people, not dismissing people, not ridiculing people, but just listen to everybody. And then when the man left, he said, Kuni, you see, the other security people, the man came here and said, they put me on front page. The other, I don't want to pay for the food. You know, those kind of things. You know, and many people will think that the free press that we enjoy today might have started during the post-war election.
No.
But everybody who in Liberia will know that during the interim government, the independent papers really started reporting freely.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people who remember when one of the observers reporter, either an Inquirer or the observer reporter, broke the story about Dr. Sawyer buying a house in Liberia.
In America.
Yeah.
You know, that reporter was never harassed.
Yeah.
Nobody was questioned. So, I mean, this man is completely of what he believes in the democratic state.
Yes.
He believes in democratic governance.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter whether you were in the same party with him or not. He was always concerned about the democratic rights of the Liberian people. It's so sad at this time that Dr. Sawyer will have to leave us at the time we are still planting the roots of our democracy, that we are still trying to strengthen our democracy. Just, you know,
Thank you, Mr. Cooney.
I just on this sad day tribute to his memory, and I want to extend my sincere condolences to the bereaved family. Yes, it is the family that are directly bereaved, but it is the entire Republic of Liberia. And we can even confidence in the entire Africa that is bereaved by his passing. May his soul and the soul of the people departed and the other comrades that departed before him, may they rest in perfect and perpetual peace. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the voice of the director or deputy director of NSA during the interim government. That's Wilmot Weti Kuni. Thank you, Mr. Kuni. And few more comments here, and then we close.
Okay.
He was one of the best brains and Liberians who missed a great son who impacted our life. That's from Al Tobe. May his gentle soul continue to rest in heavenly peace. Moves forth a great fight for change. And William Davis, McDavid, who called earlier, said, and I remember this very well, he said Monrovia was divided between the three groups: NPFL from Pinsville to City Hall, AFL from the Mansion to Gabriel Tucker, and IMPFL from Vietown to St. Paul Bridge. And Sawyer was just at Duco and still managed to be, an interim government that really changed things in Liberia and the way we even look at governance. Dave said he was a great historian. He used history to build national consensus.
Yes.
And that was good. Elvis, great tribute, Mr. Jai and Prof. Nabe. A life well lived and worthy of this befitting tribute. In our church, all the way in Dodrukan, we used to sing the song that this world, we are all in transit. Come on, more dakwa dear.
Yes.
Then so they always say this world, we are strangers. We are pilgrims, we are in transit, and we're gonna go home one day. Dr. Sawyer has ended his earthly journey and he has transitioned to go home. We say rest in peace, Prof. And we want to say to the family, our condolences. We mourn with you. Please check with the family and the bulletin for the announcements on his funeral and other things. We don't have that information here, but we want to say those things are out there, and so please be a part of it. And Prof, we're going to end with your poem. After your poem, the voice will hear again. And at 3 p.m. today, we will continue with our regular programming. That's our FOL Marketplace. We're going to be talking about how to improve the economy. And this time, we're going to be talking about electricity, which is very powerful energy. Right? So you're going to close us with the poem. After whatever you want to say.
Well, I guess I said, especially with other people coming in. So let me just read the poem to round it up. The poem is titled Live, L-I-V-E. Live, so that in your living, many will come to be excited about living. Live, so that in your living, many will never stop praying to God for more humans like you. Live, so that when you leave the world, many will never stop talking about the exciting show you put up while you were alive. Live, just be sincere and honest about what you do. And if for some reason some people do not understand the importance of your show, let them, when they know, weep and regret their misplaced anger, and later hold up high your name and your God. I say, never cease to live.
Thank you, Prof. On that note, we want to say thanks to all of you for watching this special tribute to Dr. Sawyer. And as Dr. Sawyer always talk about the Liberian mosaic, we end with the song that says, we are all Liberians.
Yes. Yes.
whatever you come from, we saw a lot of things. We are all Liberians, and literally, we are
Yes.
all Liberians.
Mhm.
And as a tribute to Dr. Sawyer, let's
Yeah.
always hold together and do whatever it takes
Yes.
to make Liberia that glorious land of liberty. Have a good day and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.
We are Liberians.